Lately, I've been checking out some of the Blue Jays projected lineups and what they could look like, and some of them are a little crazy coming from Blue Jays media. Today, we'll tell you exactly what we think the Blue Jays lineup should look like.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. We are your hosts of Locked On Blue Jays, Monday through Friday here on the channel. We are also constantly on Twitter. You can find me, Braden Iwasco at Braden5 Iwasco, and our co-host Carter First at Carter First 2. Carter, it's been a long week, it feels like, for us. We have been battling illness to get out this podcast, and I think we've done an all right job, but man, it has been a struggle. Me and you have been going through the absolute motions.
Yeah, it was a tough start to the week. I think our weekend's festivities kind of screwed us a little bit. Didn't feel good Sunday night, kind of carried us into the early days of the week. But now it's Wednesday as we're recording this. I don't feel that bad. I'm starting on the road to recovery. And now we can just look forward to doing the same damage to our bodies on the weekend. So I'm excited. Our beer league hockey starts this weekend, our playoffs. So I'm excited to get into that as well.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one because, we got a game Sunday. I think if we win, we play Tuesday or something like that. And we're second in the division. So we sort of like have a good feeling like, okay, we should beat most teams or whatever. But then like the big like playoff day, I guess, where you could have like 3-4 games or whatever is next Saturday. So throughout the week, we're going to try to hopefully get a few more wins so we may only have to play like twice to make to the finals. But man, it's always just ballistic because we play all day hockey. You're having a couple beers here and there throughout the whole day. And then there's a big St. Patrick's Day social that night in town. So it's just like, here, are you tired? Don't worry about it. Go drink 40 beers.
Yeah, and last year I was actually reffing this tournament, and I was also playing in the league. So, tell me how that's fair. But it didn't really matter. Our team historically was not that good. This year we finally have a good team that might actually be able to do some damage in the tournament. Yeah, but it's a long day. No matter what, you're probably getting 3 games out of the day. Start around at 8 in the morning, and then you can go until like 10 at night. So it's a long day, but it's also a lot of fun. You got to see some guys you haven't seen in a long time. Everyone's out busy, enjoying their lives, out busy at work, doing stuff. So it's nice to get everyone back together in our small hometown.
Yeah, and of course, it will be St. Patrick's Day that Saturday. As everybody, I think, saw in the last one or 2 podcasts ago when we were doing the Josh Donaldson episode, I have a Josh Donaldson A's jersey from back in the day. So I'll maybe throw that on and pay a little homage, however you say that word, to my favorite player as well, which I think I did last year too, but I don't know, just keep it the same.
Yeah. When we get into the playoff tournament here, I think tomorrow, I know you always talk about how when we went out on the baseball field, you're like, I'm going to play like 2015 Josh Donaldson. I think we could give the fans some insight of maybe who we're going to play like on the playoff weekend here coming up.
Yeah, me and Carter probably are both going to be playing like, I don't know, 2018 Shoresy from the show, most likely. Or whatever. Take your pick of fourth line grinders that'll play 10 minutes a game. That'll be the 2 of us.
My goal is just to be slightly better than 2024 Jesse from Barstool. If I can get that done, then we're good.
Yeah. I might honestly still play like Josh Donaldson, but in hockey. So,
yeah, who knows? In a 1v1 in hockey, you might be able to take Josh Donaldson down.
There we go. Of course, we talk a ton lately about these projected lineups, where guys are going to be playing. But you know what? We did some digging into a few different websites that put out their projected batting orders for this coming season. Carter, do you want to go over a couple sites that we found, and then we can give ours sort of later on?
Yeah, so the first one is from pretty early on in the year. It's from February. Keegan Matheson tweeted it out. And this is an order that a lot of fans, I would say it's the most like prototypical one that you probably get the most of the fans agreeing on. Maybe there are a little bit of tunes and fixes, but a lot of these players will be in similar spots, if not in the exact same spot that Keegan Matheson had them in. So he had this as the order. The first 4 are pretty set in stone, I'd say. There could be a few changes, which we'll actually break down in this episode. But he has George Springer as being number 1, one of the best leadoff hitters in MLB history. I think he's like number 4 in home runs from leadoff spot in the MLB. Bo Bichette at number 2. Again, he's been there for the majority of his career. Vladdy at number 3. If you can get better offensive numbers, that'd be great from him at 3. And Justin Turner at 4. Number 5, he has whoever's playing second base out of Schneider and Biggio. Again, the upside that is there. Biggio looked at the second half of the end of last season. Schneider, when he came in, obviously with all these rookie records. Then he has one of the catchers at 6, Kirk Ruggiano, 7, Varsho, 8, IKF, and 9 to lead off. The end of the order is Kevin Kiermaier. So with this lineup, again, like the top 4 are pretty concrete. I feel like a lot of fans can agree that it's going to be some sort of this combination. The 5, 6, 7 hitters is where I think this order, we could see a lot of change throughout the season.
Yeah, and of course, we'll get into what we think and me and you haven't shared what we think opposite each other, but we'll get into what we think in a bit. I did want to bring up, I think you actually wrote it down. Can you tell me where it's from again? Even the website, I was like, okay.
Is that the Roto Champ one?
The Roto Champ one. Like, oh God, whatever. I'll get into it after you say it, but people will know why this is ridiculous.
Yeah, this one, this is the watch of the first one I found when I did a quick Google search, just like a projected lineup. I looked at the first 2. I'm like, okay, that's a little bit out there. And then I saw the number 5 guy. I'm like, okay, I could probably do some better source checking with some of the lineups I'm looking at. At least I caught on to it right away. But again, they have George Springer as number 1. They have Vladdy at 2. I can see that in some formality. Maybe I would think he'd go to 2 if he's hitting better. He'd probably go farther down in the lineup if he's hitting worse. But I could see that happening. Justin Turner at 3. He did that all of last year in Boston. Makes sense. Bo Bichette at 4. Okay, whatever. Kevin Kiermaier at 5. If you have Kevin Kiermaier, he had a really good year last year at the plate. More of a better season than he regularly would have, his average season offensively. Even that, Kevin Kiermaier at 5 would be ridiculous, in my opinion, especially when you have like Kirk, Jansen, Varsho. All these guys can hit better than him below him in this lineup. So at 6, they have Kirk, 7, Varsho, 8, they have IKF, and 9, they have Kevin Biggio. So I just thought that lineup was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, why? Like, maybe they're trying to switch some things up, have a differing opinion, get views. I don't know what the point of this lineup was. This is not going to be the line, or I pray to God that this isn't going to be the lineup, because this makes no sense to me whatsoever. And I think as any Jays fans, you can see you want Kevin Kiermaier in that 9 spot. He's a guy that flips the order perfectly. He's been doing that last year. You got to keep him where he's comfortable. He's comfortable there. He knows what he's got to do. That's the guy I want at 9. Now, yeah, the whole Vlad Bo maneuvering, fine, I guess. But Bo is typically, he hits well in the 2 spot. Why do we want to move him? And I think Vladdy and Turner are guys that can drive people in with a little bit more consistency with the long ball. So keep those guys as your 3, 4. Like, I don't understand the movement here. We really wanted to bring those up because I just thought, like, we were reading them over together and I'm like, what is happening? Like, I had to check. I'm like, is this an actual website that people are putting stuff out on, or are they trolling us? Because I thought maybe Carter got it as a tweet or something and it was like a fan trolling, but no, it's a legit site. And that's the first thing that you look, when you look it up on Google, that's the first thing that pops up. I was mind boggled.
Yeah, if you're a casual fan just trying to look up like what the Jays lineup could look like this season, and then you see that, and then you're like, you might believe it. Who knows? Like, if you're not early into the team, you might not know who Kevin Kiermaier is, and you just assume that that's correct. Then, yeah, looking at Kevin Kiermaier's skill set, it wouldn't really make sense to have, at best, a singles hitter in the middle of your lineup. Not going to do a lot of damage there. But one thing I wanted to go into just before we head to our first break here is Buck Martinez. The reason that we kind of are talking about these lineups right now, mentioned on the broadcast earlier this week, just about Bo Bichette and how good he's been the last few seasons. But with some of the struggles that we've seen from guys like Vladdy, George Springer not having a very good year last year that I don't think is talked about enough. Justin Turner coming is going to be huge, but Alejandro Kirk's another guy that had a bad season. Dalton Varsho, he was saying how if all these guys don't have great years and you have Springer at 1 kind of just wasting outs at the number 1 spot, do you move Bo Bichette up or down in the order? And he actually said there was some rumors that they could experiment with Bo Bichette going down as far as the 4 spot. So the lineup would probably look something like George Springer, then Justin Turner, Vladdy, and then Bo. I'm not sure how you feel about that. The reasoning behind it is that some of these players on the Blue Jays were struggling driving runners in. And with Bo Bichette, he is known to be very clutch in 2-out situations. He is great at hitting the ball up the middle the opposite way, is good at hitting the ball in the outfield and driving in runs. So in this situation, you could hit him at 3 or 4. Maybe he has more opportunities to drive in runs other than some of the guys that have struggled with this in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I give my thoughts on this. I don't love it. And the only reason I don't love it is because a couple things. I've been over that Bo Bichette is comfortable hitting 2. You want him hitting there. You want him getting on base. And I think the biggest downplay of this scenario that Buck was talking about is that I think Vlad has a bounce back year, and Justin Turner, if you get the same production of him that he had in Boston, you're thrilled with that. And those 2 guys will be fine in that 3-4, and that they will drive in runs. I don't think we need to move Bo around and keep switching things. I think the more similarities that you can make in a lineup every single day, the better it is just for the guys knowing where to be, knowing how many pitches they can see before they get up, how many times they can see this pitcher, how many times this guy gets an at-bat. Giving Bo Bichette as many at-bats as possible is probably what you want to do. If it's the 9th inning and, Kevin Kiermaier got the last out, at least, okay, Bo Bichette is getting an at-bat. He could make a difference here. But if he's hitting 4, there's always that possibility that's like, will he get that extra at-bat, right? And that's what's scary about Buck's projected lineup here.
It's funny that you said that, actually, is because I did make a lineup just based off some of the struggles that we had last season. And when I made this lineup, I'm like, I don't want Bo getting less at-bats. He's been consistently one of the best hitters on our team. So in this scenario, George Springer, I have him. He's probably one of the Blue Jays I'm the most worried about this coming season. He's getting a little bit older, did not have success last season at all. He was at the start of the year, we're like, hey, it's just he's having a little bit of a tougher time figuring it out. He's going to do it. He's going to figure it out. And we just kept seeing him kind of struggle throughout the entire season. So now if, say, we have a scenario where George Springer isn't hitting again, you don't want your first hitter in the lineup to just be a black hole. So in this scenario that I have Bo Bichette moving up to 1. In my opinion, you give your best hitter the most attempts at hitting the baseball, right? So then the problem with this is this gives kind of in the number 2 hole, there's a gap there because you can't necessarily put in Kevin Biggio. I wouldn't feel comfortable putting Dalton Varsho in unless some of these players make a step. And one player that I can see possibly making a step this upcoming season is Davis Schneider. So if you can get Davis Schneider to kind of just become a spark plug, maybe even throw him at 1 if he can get on base. I don't think he'll be able to get on base enough to justify him getting on at 1. But Davis Schneider, you can get on. And if you have a bounce back from Vladdy, then you have Justin Turner and Vladdy. You got 2 shots of them actually driving the ball into the gap and driving these runners in. So I think it would be interesting to experiment Bo Bichette more at 1 rather than moving him down farther into the order. But I think to start off the year, it would make the most sense to leave Springer at 1. Hopefully he bounces back. Then have Bo Bichette at 2 because he is a guy that's getting on base and can set up the bigger dogs in this lineup.
So just let me ask you a question here. So in this scenario where this happens, does Bo move up to 1 and Davis Schneider slots in at that 2? Is that what you're thinking?
I'm thinking they probably have to ride the hot hand at this point. Like maybe Davis Schneider is struggling. Maybe we saw Kevin Biggio at the end of the year have a good season for the last 45 or so games. Dalton Varsho has had spurts where he's been all right. Then if it depends how Springer's playing as well. In this scenario, he's completely lost, and you're not having him in the lineup.
Okay.
Maybe against right-handed pitchers, you have Daniel Vogelback in it too. But even him, I might slot him a little bit farther down in the order. You could throw Justin Turner at 2. You move Vladdy to 3. Springer at 4. There's different scenarios you could have in this hypothetical. But Bo Bichette, I don't think you want to take away bats from Bo Bichette. I think if anything, you give Bo Bichette more at bats. Yeah,
no, fair enough. Okay, I just wanted to see where your head was at. We do want to get into our projected lineups for this season. Not so much. I don't even want to call them projected lineups. It's lineups that what we think would work well personally. Because yes, everybody's going to have a few guys slotted in different places, and obviously, most likely, the opening day isn't going to be exactly what we think it should be because we're not the Blue Jays management team. But we want to get into that next, just to go over, give you guys some thoughts, even if it gives you guys something to think over. Today's episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. This is great because the Locked On content is on Amazon Fire TV. So it's the perfect place for you guys to go out and check out all of the Locked On channels. I mean, I know, listen, I'm a huge Blue Jays fan. This is the show I'd be watching if I was a Blue Jays fan. But if I'm also a Vancouver Canucks fan or a Winnipeg Jets fan or a, for goodness sakes, Toronto Maple Leafs fan, this is the place I'd go to watch their content because that we have shows streaming all across this Amazon Fire TV. So it's such a good opportunity. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experience with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV, whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament. You're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brand, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels lets you dive into all the games, analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date with all the latest in the world of sports. March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. Holy, that was a mouthful. I sort of liked it though.
Yeah, it's the first time for you doing that ad. You did it in one take, so that's pretty good compared to how your intros went. This
my intros today, God. It's getting to that point of the week. We, like I said, we just coming off of some sickness, some illness, some tired nights. Not being able to sleep. When you can't breathe through your nose or your mouth, it's hard to actually get solid sleep. But yeah, that was Fire TV. Honestly, that fires me up. Honestly, as many more things as we're on is going to be cool to me. So if you're a Locked On fan, this is might be perfect for you, right? I know a couple of my buddies as well have to have a Fire TV, and they've been using it to watch our podcast, which is really cool. I think that's awesome. But it is time to get into our projected lineups for the season. Carter, I want to give it to you first to see just what yours is and how much it differs from mine.
Yeah, so what I based mine off of is it's tough to say in spring training, like who's going to exceed expectation, who's going to be lower than expectations this upcoming season. So I'm just kind of basing it off their career averages and what they've done just throughout the last couple of seasons as well. So I think the way George Springer played last season wasn't good at all, but I think with the amount you're paying him and the amount of respect you have to have for George Springer and his accomplishments, I think you have to slot him at number one, at least to start the season. So I have George Springer at number one. I have Bo Bichette also starting at number two this season. I think best hitter on the team. You don't want to move him farther down in the order. I think Bo Bichette's a guy that can hit the ball in the outfield, so he's a good guy to move that runner from one into scoring position. And what's the point of moving Bo to number four and having a guy like Vladdy go? And if he hits a home run, it's only a one-run home run compared to a two-run home run. So in my number three slot, I actually have Justin Turner. I think you leave Justin Turner at three. He played with the Boston Red Sox pretty much all season in that number three spot last season. He's known to be a leader on he becomes a leader quickly in the dugout. We saw that last season with the Red Sox. He quickly overtook that dugout in spring training, and hopefully he can do that here with the Toronto Blue Jays. And that leaves me at number four with Vladdy. Not saying he's going to have a bad season. I think Vladdy, if you can have a home run hitting Vladdy can hit 35 plus home runs. That's a scary guy to have coming out in that four slot. I think that would be a really great addition to have. You have that power bat. If you just bet on one of George Springer, Bo Bichette, or Justin Turner getting on base, you have an opportunity to get 2 runs. And that's a bet I'm willing to take. So then I'm going to quickly go over these next 5 here. I have Davis Schneider as my 5th batter. I'm hoping that he can make more offensive strides this season, kind of slot into that another power bat role in that 5 slot. So it's a spot that Daniel Vogelbach could take if he's playing right-handed pitching, because we all know that he can smack right-handed pitching. We saw it against Garrett Cole. Number 6, I have either catcher, Kirk Ruggiano. 7, Dalton Varsho. Hopefully can have a little bit of a bounce-back season. 8, I have IKF, just because defensively, I think IKF's probably going to start at third base. Kevin Biggio is a better hitter, in my opinion. But I just think with opening day roster, it's going to be IKF. And then we got Kevin Kiermaier at number 9.
Okay. Interesting. Mine is different. Not insane. Like, I'm not throwing anything crazy at the wall or nothing like that. But I got George Springer at 1. Obviously, I want to keep him where he's at. I like him there. To get some more leadoff bombs, I mean, I'll take that any day of the week. Bo Bichette at 2. I've talked about in length already that I want to keep Bo there. I think that's where he's comfortable. He gets to see a couple pitches. He gets to go up there, do some damage early. I like that. Vladdy at 3 for me. I just think Vladdy's having a bounce back. That's where I'm at. I think it's a bounce back year. So he's going to hit home runs and hopefully drive in just Bo, because George Springer hits a home run first, or maybe both of them. So at best case, I think Vladdy can drive in some runs there. Justin Turner, just because I haven't seen a bunch from him, honestly. And I think the 4 slot fits nicely for him. At the end of the day, I haven't seen a ton. I don't know where he's going to fit nicely. So I kept him in that 4. I like that for him. Then I got Davis Schneider at number 5 as well. The only thing with him, and I think he's starting at 2, that's me. I think I would start Davis Schneider at 2. And I think the 5 hole fits well in the sense of is that if Vladdy doesn't hit a home run, Justin Turner doesn't hit a home run, you have an extra guy with pop that can. And I wouldn't put him in the 1 or 2 hole or anything like that, because he's not necessarily an average hit, like a hit for average guy. He's a guy that's going to give you that big swing. And I think Davis Schneider would even say that himself. He strikes out a decent amount, but he can put the ball over the wall, which is something you want to see. Next, I have either Jano or Kirk, depending on who's pitching. Then I have Varsho. And originally, I had Biggio starting at 3rd. That's just what I think. Necessarily, do I think that's going to happen? No, I think it's going to be IKF. But either way, I'll put either of them in the 8 hole. And then, of course, to clean it all up, at number 9, Kevin Kiermaier, because that is the spot that's made for him. He flips that lineup over better than almost anybody I know. He does a fantastic job. So ours did differ a bit, Carter. Do you have an argument against mine? Do you have anything? Like, what are your thoughts going now seeing both of ours?
No, the only difference that we had was just that Turner and Vladdy flip. And I can definitely see Vladdy being at number 3. Just he's got to pick it up a little bit. If you have a Vladdy season from last year, I'd be much more comfortable with Justin Turner hitting in that number 3 slot. But then if you see Vladdy come out hot and start a regular season and opening day, you might as well slot him up. I just said about Bo Bichette, you want your best hitters hitting as much as possible. So if Vladdy can be driving in runs in the 3 slot, I think that'd be great as well. We both had Schneider at 5. I could easily see Kirk or Jano hitting at 5. Kirk's been looking great so far this spring training. Already has 2 home runs. Jano had the fever a little bit last week, so we haven't seen him too much recently, but just based off of his projections when he is in the game, he's looked great as well. So I could see him hitting higher. Dalton Varsho looked good so far this spring training. You could see him possibly experimenting with that number 2 and 1 slot. But again, he's a guy that hasn't really hit for average. And then it just depends who they have in the lineup, which pitcher they're facing, right? If they're facing a right-handed pitcher, it's going to be a different lineup than they would having a left-handed pitcher in. So that's going to have to be a per matchup basis on what our lineup's going to look like.
Yeah, for sure. And we didn't overly take into account the fact of, okay, he's pitching this. We just want to give you a general overview of a day-to-day lineup that we think we would like. Because at the end of the day, they're probably not going to be right. We're probably going to be wrong. They're probably going to throw something at the wall that we didn't expect, or maybe that we don't like necessarily. So I think it's going to be interesting. But Carter, since we did talk about the Fire TV stuff, where else can they find our Locked On streaming service?
Yeah, it's nice that Locked On is finally expanding options on streaming services that we have available and just different viewing options where people can see our podcast. But another service that we do have is our Locked On 24/7 streaming channel. This is for people that maybe you're an early riser and you want to watch our podcast in the morning, or maybe you're a night owl and you want to tune in at 2 a.m. It's the perfect opportunity for you guys to do that. Just go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to our first ever Locked On 24/7 streaming channel.
We've been sort of waiting to talk about this guy a little bit. I don't know. I feel like we kept putting him off. Like we're like, it's too early to talk about him. Well, it's finally here. The lefty, Tim Mayza, his player profile coming up next.
PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more or less on stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today on PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. I know one thing that I like to bet on when usually I go on PrizePicks is I like to do shots over under, usually in some NHL games. Austin Matthews is a pretty easy bet right now, the way he's going off. It's scoring like crazy. The Florida Panthers, another team that are on a little bit of a winning streak. So you can bet on them as well. Some of their players, they got Sam Reinhart's been unbelievable. Alexander Barkov's another guy that can usually pick up on assists on Reinhart's goals. There's a few different things that you can bet on. For basketball, rebounds is usually a good one. Assists as well there. There's a bunch of different players you can bet on, and PrizePicks is the perfect app for you guys to go on and do that. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for first deposit matchup up to $100.
Well, it's time. It's time. I know you are a huge Tim Mayza fan. You might be the world's biggest Tim Mayza fan, as far as I can remember. So we finally decided to do his player profile. I know we've been sort of doing these sporadic, but there's only so many players, and there's still a ton of days left before the season gets underway. We want to save some of the big dogs till the end. Don't get me wrong. We've done Manoah like 19 times, I feel like, at this point, because something keeps coming up with that guy where we got to go over stats and projections and blah, 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 blah. So, but this guy doesn't get talked about enough. Tim Mayza, unbelievable season last year. I'll quickly go over some of his numbers. Carter might have some to add on as well. So the lefty in the pen, a 2.1 WAR from last season, which is pretty unbelievable. Then a 1.52 ERA, outstanding, stellar. Then, so he had 53.1 innings pitched. He only gave up 2 home runs all season. Insane numbers. So that puts him at 0.3 home runs per 9, which is just, that stat every time just jumps off the page for me. That's nuts. And he had 53 strikeouts. So Carter, I mean, I don't know what else to say. If that guy can have a season like he did last year, this could be huge for this team as well.
No, I have to, I think, apologize to Tim Mayza, because before this season, he was good in 2022 and 2023, but he was one of those guys that would go up and he could pitch 10 games in a row of scoreless baseball, get 3 outs every single time, and then give up 1 home run. It's like, Tim Mayza, what are you doing? Like, get out of here. I get so mad at him. I don't know what it is about Tim Mayza, but he always used to piss me off before. But with how much success he had last season, it was hard to hate on the guy. I mean, like you said, an ERA, which was one of the lowest in the league. And I feel like he wasn't getting that respect. Even when he's pitched like 30 innings, he still had that ERA. It's like, oh, Tim Mayza is going to fall off eventually. That's the feeling that I got from a lot of Blue Jays fans. But he was sneaky good. It's a left-hander we had in the bullpen for the first 2/3 of the year before we got Genesis Cabrera. He was the only left-hander we had. So if we had a right-hander that came in, that was good against, if we had a left-hander come in that was good against right-handed pitching, we only had Tim Mayza, and it was a good thing that he was effective. One thing with Tim Mayza is he did get a little bit lucky with some of the stats here. His opponent average was 250, which is about, again, 1/4 of the time, but his expected ERA was 3.38. So that is more than double of what his actual ERA was. So there are some stats that went in his favor. One thing that is really good about Tim Mayza is he's a ground ball pitcher. He has a ground ball percentage in the 97th percentile in the league. And I think that's due to just the movement on his fastball and the way he can hide his pitch grip before he delivers to the plate. Kind of turns all the way backwards, has it behind his back for a long time, and then keeps the ball in his glove until the last second. So it's nice to see that Tim Mayza can come in with runners on base and get like some ground balls to get these double plays. Just looking at his pitch selection as well. He's a fastball slider pitcher, 76.5% fastballs. So he's throwing these fastballs pretty often. It's about 93 miles an hour, and he's got some sinking action on it. So I think that's why he's producing all these ground balls, and a great pitcher to have in this Blue Jays bullpen that doesn't necessarily have a lot of left-handers at its disposal.
Yeah, and I think exactly what you said. I want to go back to the start of when you started talking there, because we were not nice to Tim Mayza 2 years ago. We started a lot of you have never seen these before, but we did a few episodes of this podcast, of not this podcast. We made one like 2 years ago that we thought, hey, let's give it a try. Let's go out here, test the waters of podcasting. I've done a few in my time of, being around the internet and the media and whatever. But I brought Carter in and I'm like, hey, let's try this. I think I don't know, it was 4 episodes. 2 of them were how much we hated Tim Mayza and Trevor Richards. I think they're like literally 2 full episodes were almost, these guys suck. And you know what? Both of them came out last year and made us, touch grass. So good on them. I'm very happy that they're both having success, and hopefully they can keep it up in this coming season.
See, I think there's a huge difference between Tim Mayza and Trevor Richards, though, because Tim Mayza has been a good baseball player for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Whereas Trevor Richards' fastball is still pretty bad. Like, it's like 92, doesn't move at all. But Trevor Richards, his changeup just came alive last season, and it looked like it was in its prime. When his changeup is on, it's one of the best pitches I've ever seen. It's crazy. But the problem is he only has a fastball to play off of it. So if you get that fastball lined up early on, you're going to smack that thing. With Tim Mayza, he's been good his whole career. So it was one of those things, like a mental block for me for some reason, where I'm like, damn, Tim Mayza's going to screw this up here. Tim Mayza's going to screw this up.
I know. And you know what? It was probably just because there was a few bigger situations where it didn't go our way. And that's what's locked into our mind all the time. But then, going back and realistically looking at the stats, Trevor Richards is a little bit different, but it was the same sort of situation where we were just like nonstop focused on. I think we put out TikTok saying like Trevor Richards is the worst human being alive. No, that was Brendan Belt we said that about, actually. But there was a few, like we in those first few episodes we did, it was a lot of like, because it was a rough time, right? The pitching staff wasn't going our way, and we were getting very frustrated. And it's funny how the tables turn. And last year it was the hitting, the bats. We couldn't wake them up. But yeah, sort of, we owe some players some apologies, I think.
Yeah, Tim Mayza is a guy that we need in this bullpen, whereas Trevor Richards, a guy that is probably not going in as high a leverage, and a guy that had just 2 tails of a season, where before the All-Star break was amazing. His changeup looked unbelievable, has that little bit of an injury. He's gone for a couple weeks, and he's kind of back to the Trevor Richards we saw over the last few seasons. So Tim Mayza, again, this is, I think, why that we both kind of gave them both flack, is that Trevor Richards just wasn't good at all of the times. Tim Mayza was just going in higher leverage situations. He was a better pitcher. He was going in the 7th, the 8th inning, where the leverage is higher. There's more at stake, and it's tougher to pitch in that environment. So with Tim Mayza, I'm definitely reaching out an apology to him. Trevor Richards, I'm not fully determined on whether or not he's going to have a good season yet.
Okay, fair enough. I will say, in defense of Trevor Richards, that changeup looked filthy in spring training. It looked nasty.
And he just showed it off against the Phillies as well, and he looked good with it. So when that thing's on, he can do some damage, but it's just rolling the dice with Trevor Richards against some of the league's best hitters. Yeah, that's not something I want to necessarily bet on. But with you and your betting history, I'm sure you would love to take that.
That's right. Yeah, it's right up my alley. Yeah, 100 to 1 odds. Let's put a bet on it.
As long as the return is high, then you're like, just let it ride, hey?
That's all. It's only to see. It's like, 5 to 1 odds. I'm like, Trevor Richards, easy money. No,
I can bet $1 and win 35. That's great odds.
Yeah. No. At the end of the day, we do love doing these player profiles. I know we don't get to do them often because we need to spread them out a little bit, but they are fun. The projected batting order is fun too, just to see where things are going to line up. And we're going to be doing some more projections and getting into that sort of stuff closer to opening day. And actually, I think I'm not sure if we can announce this yet, but we'll give you guys a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. Locked On MLB is going to be doing their AL East projection. I think we record that tomorrow. So that's going to be very interesting. I think we're going to predict where everybody's going to fall, and we're going to project who we think is going to be the MVP of the season. But, if I have to cut this out because they have not announced that yet, then that sucks. But thank you guys for always tuning in. We have been having a ton of fun doing these episodes. We're happy to be back in somewhat better of health so that, we have a little bit more energy. The last few, I felt like we were a little bit dead, but it's tough. Like I said, it's tough to get sleep when I can't open my jaw, and then and then you're not allowed to breathe out of your nose or mouth either. So yeah, it was a very interesting week, Carter. But we powered through and we're here.
Yeah, we made it through. It's only Wednesday as we're recording this, but hey, that's 60% on the week. We're looking forward to the weekend. And just before we head out, I wanted to throw it one more time over to our 24/7 streaming channel. It's a great opportunity to check out pretty much whatever sports you guys want to be watching at any time. Just go to YouTube and subscribe to our 24/7 Locked On streaming channel.